Hello and welcome to my latest video. So this time we're going to be taking our first look at the Great Pan series of paperbacks published by Pan Books from the late 1940s into the very early 1950s. So this will be from Great Pan number 1 up to around Great Pan number 125. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay, so this is the very first Great Pan, and these were all marked. I see that was a Great Pan double volume, and these were either marked as G or GP for Great Pan. This one is the very first one, so it's G1. You can just about make it out on the bottom of the spine there, and they certainly launched it with a really nice one, which was Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. So both the classic Lewis Carroll books with the original 92 Sir John Tenniel illustrations. And this first Great Pan was published back in 1947. And the way that Pan organised their catalogue, so the numbered only books, which we've already seen, were initially two shillings, and then the Great Pans were 2 and 6. And later on we'd have an X series, which were the Pan Giants. And then later on again we'd have T's and M's, there'll be all sorts. So we will get around to those eventually. But for now, we'll just be having a look at about my run of the first 125 Great Pans. I don't have them all. There's a few gaps missing in my collection, but I've got not too bad a selection of them. Anyway, that's number one. It is a really nice edition, that one. The early ones in particular are difficult to find, and they're very difficult to find in nice condition. Maybe they just didn't have massive print runs. Here is number 2, and I do feel quite lucky to have this particular one, since it's one of those ones which, well, I think this is probably unread. I got to tell you, it weighs a ton. Honestly, it weighs as much as like a hardback. It's really unusual. Yeah, 1947 again, but a delight to have that one in such great condition, because as I said, they don't generally turn up in that nice nick, to be honest. Fanny by Gaslight. I say it a lot. I say it as like a phrase. Fanny by Gaslight. GP number 3. Michael Sadler. And then GP number 4, Guide to Modern Thought. Look how primitive the cover designs are. This one's got a cartoon by Lowe on the front there. They're very basic, aren't they? But these early ones have got a really nice neck. That one's got a sticker on, but I'm pleased with that one. That's number 4. So that's the first 4. Another big thick one. This is number 5, a Great Pan again. So The Years, a novel by Virginia Woolf. There we are, something a little bit different. Big thick volumes, these. 300-400 page books in a lot of cases. This is number 6, Royal Dukes, Queen Victoria's Wicked Uncles. Historical novel there, historical book. Number 8, so Escape With Me, a travel book by Osbert Sitwell. And number 9, The Young Melbourne, Lord David Cecil, with 7 illustrations in photogravure, basically black and white. Number 10 is this one, The Letter, and 2 other plays by W. Somerset Maugham. It's number 12, The Last Days of Hitler. This copy of number 12 isn't actually the first. This is the first reprint of it, but it's quite a scarce one to find. That in any condition. Number 15, 3 restoration comedies, The Way of the World. So all the ones that you see here are first Pan editions in the Great Pan series. If they're not, they are very early reprints. But on the whole, apart from that one there, the Last Days of Hitler, I believe all of the ones that we're about to see are first Pan books in the Great Pan series. Sometimes they were reprinted later on as a Great Pan at the higher price point. I believe it's a remarkable autobiography of a former British communist who broke away from the party because he found a saner face, an anti-communism novel there. This is GP17. So, as I said, those early ones were either G or GP. These are all GPs now. The 12 Olympians, Gods and Goddesses of Greece. A modern view of ancient myths, an illustrated Pan volume. So, unlike Penguin, who had the separate Pelican list for their non-fiction, Pan did not. They just put them in with the normal run of books, and I like that, to be honest. Loyalties, a famous plays series by John Galsworthy, a name that used to be massive at one point, but rarely hear of him today, of course. This is a nice one, GP20, and this is the life of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle by noted Conan Doyle expert John Dickson Carr. He went on to do Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper as well, didn't he, Dickson Carr? Which is a great book if you've never read it. GP22, Masters of Medicine. Now, some G's weren't released, they never got published. And by far, and you've probably heard me mention this before, the best site to go to is ticket.net, and Tim there has done a full bibliography of Pan books from when they started. In fact, I think he's up to the late 80s now. Absolutely phenomenal body of work there. So do check Tim's website out for all things Pan related, including, of course, if you want to get a checklist of all the titles to track down if you decide to collect them yourself. This is one of Pan's early wartime books. Went on to be a massive bestseller, The Dam Busters by Paul Brickell. Huge seller, that one. The Voyage of the Cap Pillar, Adrian Seligman. Number 25, Blithe Spirit, another plays series. Private Lives and Hay Fever by Noel Coward. Bit of a worn copy, that one, compared to some that we've seen. This is number 26, The White Rabbit. This is another very sort of common war memoir by Bruce Marshall. Number 27 is A Book of Wit and Humour. The Phoenix Book of Wit and Humour, chosen and presented by Michael Barsley. And quite a list of authors included there: Evelyn Waugh, A. Milne, Eric Linklater, Stella Gibbons, Timothy Shea, John Betjeman. So quite an eclectic list there for GP number 27. GP28, Guy Gibson, VC. This is Enemy Coast Ahead. And these are the books that you see time and time again, these war ones, when you come across the Pan books, because they must have sold by the bucket load. I mean, really, you see them all the time. Number 29, Undersea Adventure, Philippe Dioli. Looks like something to do with scuba divers and things like that. Two Eggs on My Plate. This is a behind enemy lines story set during the Second World War. GP30, that one. An illustrated Great Pan volume. This is number 32, The Set of the Sails, Alan Villiers. Adventures of a Cape Horn Seaman. There we are, look at that. Bit of a rough old copy, that one, but I'm not complaining because I'm just glad to have some of these. Number 33 is this one, Boldness Be My Friend. Another sort of war memoir. A bit of a tatty old copy, that one, but once again, I'm not complaining because some of these I'm just glad to have at all. Another one in the play series, number 34, Harlequin, adventure story, the Browning version, Terence Rattigan. This is the Deep Blue Sea, so I'm not sure whether that is taken from a play or if it looks like it's taken from a movie, doesn't it? But once again, quite a nice little copy of that one. 35, GP35, Odette. The story of a British agent, Odette Churchill, GC MBE. Don't know what the story is around Odette, but looks pretty good, doesn't it? This is number 36, The Bulls of Minos, Leonard Cottrell. The story of the great archaeological discoveries in Crete and Greece. Okay. GP37, favourite of mine, The Latter Days at Colditz. The original Colditz story was a massive success for Pan. Got reprinted many times, and they were probably more than happy to do the paperback edition of the follow-up, The Latter Days at Colditz. The original follow-up was just called Latter Days, and they changed the title for the paperback to make it The Latter Days at Colditz. Absolutely fantastic. And the author, Pat Reid, ends the first volume with him getting away from Colditz. And then this is basically what happened until Colditz was liberated, and it's absolutely riveting. The two books together, read back to back, are phenomenal and highly recommended. GP38, Wingless Victory, the story of Sir Basil Emery's escape from occupied France. So yet another escape story. A great cover there with him pinching the clothes off a scarecrow. I do love a good escape story. It's as simple as that. GP39, Women in Antiquity, Charles Seltman, one of their non-fiction ones. And what's quite distinctive about this is the Great Pan star right along the top there. It's great, isn't it? That was number 39. Number 40, 7 Years in Tibet. I don't know if this is anything to do with the Brad Pitt movie. I think it's probably unlikely. But look at early Tibet. Now, just because we haven't done it for a while, this one's saying 1956, this one. So we've come along a bit for GP number 40. GP41, Children of the Jungle, Adventures in Central America. GP42, Freedom the Spur, Gordon Inston, MM. British soldier story of his 3 escapes in France and 900-mile journey on foot. So I reckon all of these were being written and published on the back of the success of books like Colditz and The Wooden Horse and things like that. The famous escapes. GP44, The Marquis, personal record of sabotage, escape and guerrilla warfare in occupied France. These were the Marquis, these were like the French underground. Nice evocative cover of her about to blow up something, a bomb on a railway track or something like that, by the look of it. Makes you want to go and watch an episode of Secret Army, doesn't it? 45, GP45, The Dangerous Skies, Test Pilot's Adventures in Peace and War. And you notice that almost all of these have been sort of war related, because this is the war just finished and there was a flood of autobiographies being printed and wartime stories being put down. This is another one, The Privileged Nightmare. This is published on the back of Colditz. It's the story of what they were called the Promenade, which were a separate wing of Colditz, which was kept for prisoners who were politically valuable, including Churchill's nephew. As you can sort of see in the cover there, sort of an outline of Churchill with like his cigar. But it was actually Churchill's nephew who was kept in Colditz amongst other prominent European people. GP47 then, Cruise of the Conrad. The story of an adventurous voyage around the world. Alan Villiers again. I've seen another one by him. This is number 48, GP48, Danger, My Ally. Personal story of his adventures by famous explorer archaeologist F.A. Mitchell Hedges. Never heard of him. Couldn't have been that famous, could he? Still, travel, particularly vintage travel and adventure, has definitely got its fans. That's something I do know. Here's one for the boxing fans, GP49, Big Fight, the story of World Championship Boxing, Denzel Batchelor. Interesting jacket, isn't it? With some photos as well. My grandfather was a boxer, fought in the Southwest and went to America to box for a while in the 1920s. Later became a referee and actually refereed one of the very first matches on TV in black and white in the 1950s. GP number 50, Soccer, the World Game, a popular history. So one for the football fans. Great cover, that one. D.A. Stowe. Yeah, really good cover. Like that. Football, always a popular subject. And Pan were certainly not shy of publishing anything that they thought would have a commercial side to it. GP52, see this one quite often as well, Commando Extraordinary, the spectacular exploits of Otto Skorzeny. Yeah, that one tends to turn up quite a bit. Now I think what we'll do there, we'll just pause. I'm going to make a bit more space on the table, so I'll be straight back. Okay, so I'm doing my best to try and get them all into shot. So this is GP54, The Lost Pharaohs, by Leonard Cottrell again. Nice one of Tutankhamun on the front there. Number 56 here. The Navy's here. The story of the Ultimark affair and the Battle of the River Plate. This one's really good. It's got that great dynamic cover, and I see it's by Sam Peffer, a great artist. Shame I've got the cover's got a little rip on it, but what a fantastic setup that is, isn't it? Really, really great. Map on the back, but not a map back. Yeah, the Navy's here. Journey Without Maps in West Africa's Black Republic by Graham Greene, and it is, yes, that is the same sort of Graham Greene. One of his non-fiction novels. Obviously Penguin were doing other editions at that time as well. Trial, this is number 58, GP58, Trial, the gripping $10,000 prize novel that made a famous film by Don M. Mikovich. Prison one there. This is number 59, Cockleshell Heroes, Epic Exploits of the War. This is another one that turns up all the time. It must have sold a lot of copies, this one. This particular edition is almost unread, so I'm really pleased with that. And this is, what dates this? 1957 still, so they're all around that sort of period, but really nice, a nice tight spine, clean back. If only they could all be that nice, eh? But great stuff. 62, Tramp Royal, the adventurous life story of Sir Michael Bruce. There he is on the back. A man who cannot escape adventure tells his amazing life story. Well, it will remain untold, at least to me. GP63, 4,000 Years Under the Sea. Excursions in Undersea Archaeology. That's the same author we saw earlier, isn't it? So that first one must have done all right. And he did the follow-up. This is GP65, The Jury, a famous novel of a murder trial. Gerald Bullitt. GP69, Justice at Work, How the Law Works in England, another sort of a true crime title. And Pan did a few of these, I have to say, these sort of legal books, bordering on true crime. GP70, A Cure for Serpents, A Doctor's Adventure in Africa. Number 70. This is a nice one. GP71, The Great Charlie. And this is a look at Charlie Chaplin. There he is, Charlie's latest picture, King in New York. I don't mind Charlie Chaplin, but for me, from that era, it's Laurel and Hardy were number one, and then Harold Lloyd is my close second from the black and white movies. I love both of those, but Laurel and Hardy, they're the best. GP72, this is one of my all-time favourite pans, and one I had in my collection long before I collected pans, because I'm a huge fan of the Hornblower novels by C.S. Forester. The majority of them were published by Penguin Books. However, there were a few that Penguin didn't have the rights for, and this was one of them. And Pan were the ones to publish Lieutenant Hornblower, and they also published a couple of later ones in the 1960s, the tail end ones, Hornblower in the West Indies and Lord Hornblower, I believe. But great cover, that one. It was around this time that Hornblower, the first Hornblower movie, was released, and that look, although it's not the film tie-in, that looks very much like Michael Redgrave, who played Hornblower in the 50s movie. I have actually got all the Hornblower books in first edition hardback as well, which might be the subject of another video at some point. GP74, Against the Sun, Edward Launchbury, another wartime RAF memoir, that one. GP75, great cover this, Trial by Error by Rex, Paul Gallico. He would go on to do a lot of best-selling books, wouldn't he? The Golden Horseshoe, the story of Germany's most successful U-boat commander, Terence Robertson. This is GP77. So, really evocative cover, that one again. U-boat captain. So, good stuff. This is GP79, Venetian Bird by Victor Canning. Great cover on that one. Nice copy of that particular edition. And this is a scene from the movie Venetian Bird, starring Richard Todd. I'm starting a new pile over there. John Dickson Carr, GP80, The Crooked Hinge, a Dr. Fell detective story. So these are much more in line with the normal size books, but because of the price of them, they've been put into the G series. Another classic, of course, the third Ian Fleming Bond book, Live and Let Die, GP83. We all love the Bond books. 1957, that one. I remember once having the hardback first edition of that one through my hands for a little while. Went to a dealer in Hong Kong, I think it was, paid $3,000 for it, if you can believe it, and that was quite some time ago as well. But it was mint, it was absolutely beautiful. Anyway, David Devine, what a name, Boy on a Dolphin. I seem to remember this was a movie as well. Yeah, there we are, look. Filmed by 20th Century Fox with Sophia Loren, Alan Ladd and Clifton Webb. So that is the lovely Sophia Loren, with a photo insert as well. certainly she was a beauty in her day, wasn't she? And Alan Ladd was a huge film star. GP86 is the third ghost book, edited by Lady Cynthia Asquith. My copy is not in the greatest of shape, I'm afraid. I would like to get better copies of these and some of my Pan books of horror stories as well. They're going to be a whole sort of video in themselves, and I would like to get a friend of mine on to talk about them who's a Pan book of horror stories expert. This is quite nice, and I was delighted to find this one when I was digging these books out. This is White Oak Harvest, the famous sort of women's historical romance titles, but great cover by Pef, and this one is actually signed by Pef in silver there. I was lucky enough to meet Pef a couple of times. I think it must have been the very late 80s, possibly, when I first met him. Late 80s, maybe early 90s, and he was at one of the London paperback shows, and I knew he was going to be there, so I took up a bunch of vintage paperbacks that he'd done the covers for to get signed, and he graciously signed that one for me. Life Under the Pharaohs. We've seen this author again, haven't we? Leonard Cottrell. Great cover, that one. That's sort of the Egyptian hieroglyphics there. How did the ancient Egyptians live? Well, that is a very good question. I think it's a fascinating subject. Here's a great one, GP90. So this is Ernest Hemingway's look at the tradition of bullfighting. Quite politically incorrect, you could say, these days. This was the Filmtine of it, amazingly. Ava Gardner and Tyrone Power. There's a still from the movie on the back. Yeah, we've got a different edition called Fiesta, which I've already shown in a previous Pan video, but that's the Filmtine of that one. Another interesting departure, so this is The Secrets of Suez. So around this time, so let's just double check the date. Yeah, this is 1957. Around this time was the Suez Crisis. My own father got picked up got caught in the very last year of national service in the UK, and he ended up joining the paratroop corps in the UK, and he was posted to Suez, and was out in Tunisia for a while. He remembers it as quite a fun sort of time. You know, he's still in contact with his army mates today, although they're all, as you can imagine, getting on a bit. But he's still in contact with them, and a few years back they had a little reunion in Arnhem for all the paratroopers. Another great book here, John Steinbeck. Really do enjoy Steinbeck. I never got into him until about 10-20 years ago, and was delighted to go to the Steinbeck Museum last year in California. See, fantastic. 1958, that one. Pan pretty much published all the Steinbecks initially until Penguin took over the rights. This one always makes me laugh. Still Digging, Adventures in Archaeology by Sir Mortimer Wheeler. And it's just the guy, he just seems such a character, you know. Nothing against archaeologists, I think it's a fascinating subject, but he himself and the way that they put him into the cover of the book, I think it's just really funny. So it's number 94. Great one here. Great cover. I wish I had a better copy of it, to be honest. And this is Agatha Christie's The ABC Murders. Brilliant jacket by Key. Released in America as The Alphabet Murders. GP96, The Case of the Cautious Coquette, Earl Stanley Gardner. Not the cautious croquette, that's something you have with your tea. Don't mind Earl Stanley Gardner. He's not my favourite of the classic crime authors, I'm afraid, but I don't mind him. GP97, I Burned My Fingers. Well, an airman's triumph over war injuries. William Simpson. It looks like he's crashed his plane there, the Spitfire. And evidently, he guess he burnt his fingers, which is rather unfortunate, wasn't it? 98, Emotional Conflict. So this is a self-help. This is probably quite scarce. Nervy, anxious, self-conscious. This book will help to free you from your fears. Well, let's hope so. There's a lot of anxious people around at the moment, because as I film this, we're right in the throes of lockdown with coronavirus and COVID-19, and the UK's been locked down for about a month now, and unfortunately no end in sight. Here's a lovely one, G101, and this is Diamonds Are Forever. The fourth James Bond book. I wish I had a better copy of this one, but they are quite expensive. I've not got round to upgrading my copy of it, but it certainly is one of those classic James Bond novels. I mean, they're all great, aren't they? All the original Fleming books are fantastic. And that is the final word on the subject. Give Us This Day, GP102. It's horrifying yet inspiring. A brilliant book that must be read. Oh, I must read it. No, I'm not going to read it. There you go. See, it didn't work on me. Number 105, Carve Her Name with Pride. This is quite a famous novel, and this was also the book that inspired the Rank Organisation film. And there's some stills from the movie. Virginia McKenna and Paul Scofield star in the book of the film. It's also got some stills inside. Yes, Carve Her Name with Pride, quite a famous wartime novel. Appointment in Samara, John OHara, or G107, a bestseller that lifts the lid off American small-town life. A little bit of sort of good girl art there, just a touch. Let's not go crazy. This is Britain, after all. In the 1950s, we were still quite reserved over here. I mean, this, I forgot to even mention it, but you have to remember these are like 65, 70 years old, a lot of these books now. It's quite incredible, isn't it? There's a lovely Peter Cheyney, and it's a Sam Peff cover there. Another Little Drink by Peter Cheyney. Quite a simple composition for him. Number 109, Gideon's Day, J.J. Merrick. Also the film tie-in of this one, Behind the Scenes at Scotland Yard. Now filmed by Columbia, British, starring Jack Hawkins and Diane Foster. One Man's Day at Scotland Yard. .109. This is 110, The New Ghana, The Birth of a Nation. That's an interesting one, isn't it? This is just shows the diversity of the Pan list. It really is. When you collect Pan as a publisher, you're in for quite a ride, because there's all sorts of stuff, and some of them you will be really surprised at quite how sought after some of them are. I know the books by like Raphael Sabatini, for example, are ones which people really, really go after, but you just wouldn't rate them, you know. Anyway, we'll get to those in good time. So this is the Night Comets. Just see a little hair in that one. The Night Comets, Eric Ambler. Pawns in a Game of Violence. Nice copy of that one. And we just got 3 more to do. So we got the first Saint book. First time we've seen a Saint this time, and this is The Happy Highwayman. 9 Further Adventures of the Saints. This is 9 short stories. 1958, probably pulled from various pulp magazines or earlier short story compilations. For G123, this is G124, Murder and Its Motives by F. Tennyson Jesse. Great cover, that one, really evocative. Can't see, it's by Rex. He did a lot of the Foursquare covers as well. And just one more to go through today to cover my first batch of great pans, and that's this one, the Shirley, Darcy Nyland. Great jacket, an Australian bestseller that made a famous film. And there's a still on the back. Dana Wilson as Buster, Rosemary Harris as Lily, and Peter Finch as Macaulay. I don't recognise any of those names. Anyway, so there we are. So unlike the numbered series where I am trying to get every single one, on these great pans, I've got quite a good representation of the first 100 or so. But after that, they do start getting a bit patchy because I've not really focused on trying to get absolutely everything. But, you know, I've got my wants list, and when I come across them, I'll pick them up. But the next video will be the great pans from 126 to around 250. So look out for that. In about 3 or 4 weeks' time. So if you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it a thumbs up. Do consider subscribing for regular vintage paperback content. I've got loads more pans to go through. We're going to be at this probably at least for another year. And I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.